But I'm going to stop there because I think we should get dressed, don't you think?
Why not?
Why not? As long as we got everything here.
Your point that you made about us coming from the community ties directly into the subject of vestments. In the early church, there were no vestments. The concept was because the ministers come from the people, they should be dressed just like the people. And so for up until the end of the 4th century, there were no vestments. At the end of the 4th century, when Rome fell to the barbarians, and the style of clothing suddenly became rags, because most of those in attendance at Mass had basically lost everything when the barbarians took over. So the feeling was, boy, we can't be doing this sacred act in rags. What are we going to do? They decided to go back to the style of clothing that existed in the Roman Empire at the end of the 4th century. The garments you see here are the type of garments that were worn by the Romans at the end of the 4th century.
Okay. So the first garment that both the deacon and the priest wear is called an alb. It's white. And it comes in, some have hoods on, some are a little ornate. His is fancier than mine. He's got more money. but you notice they're white. And they symbolize the baptismal garment that we wore when we were baptized. We wore a white garment, okay?
In fact, the word alb is Latin for white.
Thank you. Very good. Now, Deacon Bob's going to put something else on that I don't have, not just because I shouldn't be wearing it, I just don't have one.
It is called a cincture, which is a 4th century Roman belt. This is the style of belt that they wore at the end of the 4th century, and that's why it continues. And it's worn around the waist. You make a little loop, pass the loop through here. The practice is that for the ordained, the tassels hang on the left. For the non-ordained, the tassels hang on the right. Many people don't observe that, so you find a lot of them. But the original symbolism was you could tell from where the tassels were hanging who was ordained and who was not.
Okay. The next piece of vestment that we wear is the stole. Okay? This is for a priest, for a bishop, and for the pope, is worn around the neck and down the front.
The word stola means towel. Recall at the Last Supper, Jesus put a towel around himself before he began washing the feet. This is the symbol of service. And so that's the object of the purpose of the stole. Of course, they've made it much more fancy in recent times, but its original purpose was to symbolize service.
But you notice he wears his differently than mine. This signifies the priesthood. The way his stole is worn signifies the deacon.
Across the body.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then this garment, mine is called a chasuble. Goes over the head. I feel like Zorro. And worn like this.
You don't want to know what the word chasuble means. It comes from causa, which means small tent. This was literally the outer garment in the 4th century. The outer garment in the 4th century. During the day, it was gathered up around the waist, so it came across the body and was tied at the side. At night or in inclement weather, you untied it, and it became your outer garment, your rain shield, so to speak. The deacon wears a dalmatic. It gets its name from Dalmatia, which is the western coast of Croatia. And a Pope Sylvester I in the year 330 was making a papal visit to Dalmatia and discovered that the servants there all wore outer garments that had sleeves. Notice there's no sleeves on a chasuble. He said, aha, I now have the garment for my deacons, and it signifies service. And so came into existence the dalmatic. So it is also a symbol of service. The interesting thing is, the only person who wears both a dalmatic and a chasuble at the same time is the Pope. Have you ever noticed when the Pope is celebrating Mass, he seems to be, wow, I had no idea it was so big. It's because he's wearing two outer garments. That's why. He's wearing a dalmatic and a chasuble. The object of wearing the dalmatic is to constantly remind himself he began as a deacon. And so every pope since Sylvester I has worn the dalmatic under his chasuble.